what would be a good next step for you. So I'm available to do that also. And lastly, the reason I'm doing this video is because this question is so hard to answer through email. So often I get those emails, where should I start? What lessons should I get? Some of them have no information about the person. They don't include any information. I'm like, how am I going to answer this? I don't know how long they've been playing. I don't know what they know, that kind of thing. Some of them are very detailed and give lots of information, but that's still hard. They might even say they're a gigging musician, but you can't really, it's hard for me to assess where they're at because gigging musicians are all over the spectrum. You could be playing at bar bands and, know very little about jazz or how to play some of the more advanced techniques, but you might have a killer ear and just be playing by ear all your life, that kind of thing. So you see what I'm saying? So it's just hard for me to answer a lot of those questions. So in the beginning, I said assessing yourself, looking at yourself from the outside is one of the most valuable things you can do as a musician. And I really mean that, because if you can get that down and learn how to do it, then now you can teach yourself, okay? You can guide yourself. You can figure out how to get from point A to point B, okay? So, and of course, my lessons help, books help, recordings help, all that stuff helps. But you have to learn to look at yourself and go, what direction should I go in? What should I do? And if you can do that, then you'll learn so much quicker. And I honestly believe, maybe I started doing that when I was a junior high school, going to that music store. But the majority of things I've learned in my life about music have been because it's me sitting somewhere thinking about my playing and what I need to do, what direction I need to go, and just being passionate and trying to learn. That might surprise some of you. Some of you think, oh, I studied with, Jerry Bergonzi or George Garzone or, Bill Pierce, any of those guys. And the reason Steve's good is because all these guys gave him these things and he was like, he learned from them. And they did give me some great things, but compared to what I've learned on my own, it's a very small percentage, very small. Like I would say 1% to 2% of the stuff I know I learned from teachers. The other 98% was me digging through all these books, was me on the internet looking up stuff, was me sitting at my desk saying, oh, how can I get my head around this diminished scale thing, when I was younger, and writing it out and writing out patterns and trying different things. That is where 98% of my learning, I think, came from. And I believe that strongly. I remember sitting in theory classes in college and being bored to tears because I knew a lot of that stuff already. I tested out of like 4 different theory classes by the time I got, my first year of college. I tested out of like 1, 2, and 3 different theory things because I think maybe 4. I tested out of them because I knew all this stuff. I learned all that stuff in high school. So you learn that ability to assess and judge and give yourself a path and be organized. Then you can learn 24 hours a day. And that's to me the most valuable thing. Instead of waiting to go and meet with your teacher once a week, instead of having, even me give you guidance every week, you can sit down every minute of every day and think, what do I need to do? Where do I need to go? How am I going to get there? Come up with a plan. That whole thing. And I will say this. I keep adding things, but here's the danger with my site, with buying books, all that stuff, is too much information. Okay, too much. There's diminished scale, augmented scale, altered scale, diminished chords, playing outside, bebop scale. You got all this stuff flying at you, even with my site, and I'm providing a service with all these videos and lessons and information. But you have to, when you're assessing, when you're coming up with a plan, you have to be able to push some other things aside, okay? So if you're, like I told you earlier, I focused on the bebop scale, I focused on the approach notes, those stories. To do that, I had to push other things aside, okay? I couldn't focus on both of those at the same time. I couldn't do that and work on other things that I you can't do everything at once. That's what I'm saying. So a lot of you are it can be overwhelming, and the same thing with books. I have all these books. I couldn't work on all those books at the same time. It's impossible. Sometimes I run into students that are trying to do that. They give me their practice schedule and regime, and I'm like overwhelmed looking at it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you do this every day? Like just they run through all the chords and all 12 keys and then all the scales, and then they do diminished for 5 minutes, then they do this and that, and it's it might work for some people, but I look at it and I go, man, I'd rather spend 3 hours on the diminished scale and get it down. You know what I mean? Like I'm like making progress than to spend 5 minutes on little things here and there. And then at the end of the day, you're like, well, what did I do today? How did I get better? I don't know. I don't know if I got better. I'm not sure about that. It's because you worked on so many different things, you're not getting anything done. And the analogy in my house, it's the same thing in my house. Like, for me, it's better to like focus on one thing. Like my wife's always telling me the kitchen door's broke, the dryer's making a weird noise, the back screen is busted. All these things you add up, and sometimes if I go around and try to do a little bit of everything, I get nothing done. So sometimes I have to go, okay, what am I going to do today? Let me fix that door. That door's been broken for like 6 months. Let me just finally get the door done. And I feel great because I get the door done. Now I got the door done, but the screen's still busted. But, so what? At the end of the day today, I can say, hey, I got the door done. Let me try the screen tomorrow. Fix that. Okay? And that's